One we have standing by here from the Brazilian cartoonist Carlos Latouf. It has a picture of Gazans in a trench being massacred by men in coats, presumably the Israelis. Somebody representing the international community looking on, somebody representing Uncle Sam, the United States looking on, but also somebody representing the Arab world looking on nonchalantly as if he doesn't care. Abdul-Bari Atwan, that sort of satire that we've seen in the press amongst cartoonists, is it too harsh on the Arab regimes, or do they have a point?
Yes, they do have a point. The Arab regimes lost the moral grounds, exactly like the Western worlds. When I said that, because, the Arab regimes can inflict a lot of damages if they like to actually use their capabilities to pressurize the West to do something. For example, when the Saudi threatened to stop coordination with the British government unless they stop the investigation vis-à-vis the Al-Yamama armed deal bribes, what happened? The British government stopped immediately this investigation. Other things, other example, when the Libyan government used the used oil as a weapon to pressurize the Swiss government to stop the investigation about the alleged attacks by Colonel Gaddafi's son against his servants in Geneva, the Swiss government actually was moved by this, and they actually stopped this investigation, at least temporarily. So they can do a lot in order to protect their brothers in Gaza who are massacred by the Israeli. But it seems, those corrupt officials who receive these bribes from Al-Yamama, more important than the blood which is shed in Gaza. The same thing, it seems, Libya can use the oil as a weapon when it comes to one of Colonel Gaddafi's sons, but when it comes to Arab brothers in Gaza, I think they are just turning to talks, words, strong words, and that's all. So I think they are capable of doing a lot, but the problem is they don't want to do so. It seems there is a preparation to set up alliance between the Israeli and moderate Arab governments in order to fight the Hezbollah in South Lebanon, Syria maybe, Iran to stop its nuclear program. I think there is a move after that. When the dust settles down of this war, we can see more contacts, more coordination between Israeli and certain Arab governments in order to launch a war against Iran. That's my prediction.
Okay, gentlemen, it's time for a short break. We'll talk more about the chances of some sort of settlement in Gaza after the break. Do stay with Inside Story. Welcome back. Israel has been intensifying its attacks on the Gaza Strip. The increase in violence has some observers suggesting Israel may be nearing the end of its war on Gaza. So if Israel is planning to end the conflict soon, has it achieved the objectives it set out almost 3 weeks ago? Tzipi Livni outlined her government's aims at the start of the Israeli bombardment of Gaza. The first was to target Hamas directly. The idea was to damage the group's military so thoroughly that they could no longer fire rockets into Israel. They also wanted to bring the Gaza-Egypt border under control. Israel says weapons, money and fighters have been smuggled through tunnels beneath the border, allowing Hamas to continue to operate. We're still joined by our guests in Paris, Patrick Seale, in Doha, Abdul-Bari Atwan, and joining us now in this part of the show, Efraim Inbar, a politics professor at Bar-ilan University and the director of its Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies. Thanks for joining us, Professor Imbar. At this moment in time, we know what Israel's objectives were in going into this war. At this moment in time, with over 1,000 Palestinians killed, conservative estimates saying that more than a third of them are children, do those figures make you feel uncomfortable at all?
I think the moral responsibility on the war rests obviously on Hamas. It was Hamas that has launched for 8 years many missiles into Israeli population centers. And just before the Israeli war started, they decided not to extend the ceasefire. And enough was enough. I think the Israelis decided that they are no longer ready to tolerate this type of situation. And probably no other sovereign state in the world would have tolerated it. And as a result of that, we went into Gaza.
Okay, so if those figures were 10,000 or 20,000, sorry to interrupt you, if those figures were 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000, it doesn't matter because, in your eyes, Hamas is morally responsible for their deaths.
Yes, I think that definitely Hamas started the war. Hamas is intent on destroying the Jewish state. This is part of its ideology. And the Israeli war is self-defense, which is recognized by the entire world. And actually, as you yourself mentioned in the program, most of the world sides with Israel and expects Israel to administer a heavy blow to Hamas, who is a radical terrorist Islamic organization that wants to undermine most of the Arab regimes and, as I mentioned before, to destroy the Jewish state.
Abdul-Bari Atwan, how would you respond to Efraim Inbar? Are you surprised at his stance?
Well, I'm not only surprised, I'm shocked to hear that somebody is defending the death of children and women and massacres taking place in Gaza, in a caged place in Gaza. I think the people in Gaza are living in a concentration camp now, even worse than a concentration camp, because even the concentration camps, Jewish concentration camps, were not bombed from air or from the sea or from the grounds as what's happening now in Gaza itself. So I think, this is the only conflict on earth where the civilian cannot have a safe route to go to safety places. The Israelis are asking the people there to leave their houses in order to bomb it, and then they don't tell them where to go because they seal the border completely. So this is appalling to be defended and to be justified by primitive rockets which, launched by Hamas, managed to kill only 13 people in the last 7 years. So I think anybody who would justify the death of civilian, of children, as we see in Gaza, is actually supporting crimes against humanity. So we have to, as a journalist, we have to side with the victims, with the innocent people, and also, being a Jew, actually should be extremely sympathetic with those victims, because you cannot actually bombarding us about the atrocities practiced against the Jew, and at the same time you support these kind of atrocities, massacres taking place in Gaza now, simply against people who are helpless and defenseless.
Okay.